pause lasts 3 seconds too long. Prince William, Prince of Wales, stands beneath the chandelier light of a state reception, and his eyes lock onto something most people in the room would never notice. A necklace, resting against the collarbone of Queen Camilla, diamonds catching the warm glow, throwing tiny sparks across the polished floor. He does not move. His jaw sets. His glass hovers an inch from the table, never touching down. Across the room, Catherine, Princess of Wales, sees the change in him before anyone else does. She knows that stillness. She has seen it only a handful of times in their marriage, and never in public. King Charles III continues a quiet conversation nearby, unaware or choosing to seem unaware. Camilla laughs softly at a guest's remark. The jewel moves with her breath, and William keeps watching it like a man reading a sentence he was never supposed to see. Hi viewers, before we go deeper, tell me honestly in the comments, if you saw someone wearing something that belonged to a parent you lost, would you stay silent, or would you say something? Because that is the exact question burning behind William's eyes right now. This is a channel where we break down the hidden power plays inside the royal family, the moments the cameras catch but the palace never explains. If royal secrets and forensic royal analysis are your thing, this is where you belong. Stay with me, because what unfolds across these chapters is not a scandal of shouting, it is a scandal of silence. Now, here is what makes this moment heavy. According to reports that have circulated for years in the British press, certain pieces in the royal collection carry stories far larger than their price tags. A necklace is never just a necklace inside this family. It is a record. It is a signal. And the piece resting on Camilla's collarbone tonight is one that royal commentators have long linked in public discussion to the visual legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales. Notice the careful word there. Linked, not confirmed, not stolen, not seized in some dramatic midnight raid. The palace would tell you correctly that royal jewels follow titles, not feelings. The Queen wears queenly things. That is tradition. That is the rule written into how this institution survives century after century. But William is not reading the rule tonight. He is reading the meaning. And here is the part the public has debated endlessly. Royal watchers have long argued over how Diana's symbolic legacy keeps surfacing through modern appearances. A brooch here, a tiara there, a flash of something familiar on a new shoulder. Each time the internet lights up. Each time the palace says nothing. Each time the silence says more than any statement could. So why does this feel different? Why, in a room built for ceremony, does one small object suddenly feel heavier than the crown itself? Watch William's hand. The knuckles whiten around the stem of the glass. He breathes once, slow, controlled, the way a man does when he is forcing himself not to react. This is not anger. Anger is loud. This is recognition. Something inside him has shifted, quietly, permanently, in the space of 3 seconds. A future king has just seen his mother's memory standing in another woman's reflection. And the most dangerous part? He has not decided yet what he is going to do about it. Rewind, because to understand the weight of that necklace, you have to understand the woman it points back to. Diana, Princess of Wales, was not simply famous. She was one of the most photographed people who ever lived. Cameras followed her into hospitals, ballrooms, minefields, and back alleys. And somewhere along the way, the world learned to read her without a single word. Her clothes spoke, her posture spoke, and her jewels spoke loudest of all. They were not decoration. They were armor. When she felt cornered, she wore boldness. When she felt wounded, she wore quiet elegance that dared anyone to look closer. The public learned the language even if they could not name it. A necklace meant strength. A bare throat meant vulnerability. She turned the royal collection into a private vocabulary the entire world could feel. Now, place Queen Camilla into that history. For decades, Camilla, now Queen, was one of the most contested figures in modern British royal life.
Did you know as a young boy the depth of her work that she was doing?
I knew a fair bit of it, mainly because she came back with all these stories and full of excitement and just passion for what she'd been doing. And I sort of used to sit there as quite a sort of, surprised little boy at the time, sort of taking it all in. I never realised quite how much of an impact she had. You can feel.
Her public acceptance did not arrive overnight. It was built slowly, carefully, under relentless scrutiny, and what royal biographers often describe as enormous institutional patience. The monarchy waited. It absorbed criticism, and over time, it positioned her exactly where she stands tonight, beside the king, wearing the jewels of a queen. From a public relations standpoint, that journey is one of the most managed reputation rebuilds in royal memory. And yet, the public never fully forgets. The cameras never fully forgive. Old wounds wait beneath new titles. Then there is Catherine, Princess of Wales. She occupies a role the palace never advertises, but always relies on: the bridge. She carries Diana's emotional resonance forward, while anchoring the monarchy's stability for the next era. The public sees pieces of Diana in her without being told to. A gesture, a warmth, a way of leaning toward a child in a crowd. She did not ask for the comparison. The world handed it to her, and William stands at the center of all of it, son of Diana, future king, the quiet modernizer waiting in the wings for a reign that has not yet begun. Here is the idea that drives everything forward, the one this whole story turns on. The monarchy does not inherit people, it inherits symbols. Faces change, titles transfer. But the symbols, the jewels, the names, the memories, those keep circulating, generation after generation, whether the hearts attached to them have healed or not. So the necklace becomes shorthand, not for theft, for tension, for the unfinished question of whose memory the monarchy is allowed to keep using, and at what emotional cost. And the pressure is building from outside the palace walls too. Public memory of Diana has never gone quiet. Media scrutiny of royal symbolism grows sharper every year, and the long debate over how the monarchy should modernize keeps circling back to one uncomfortable point: you cannot move forward while standing on someone's grave. Now, here is where it tightens. Sources who follow the family closely have hinted at quiet conversations inside palace walls. Discussions, never confirmed, about how Diana-linked items should be handled in future public appearances. No details, no names attached, just the suggestion that someone somewhere noticed the same thing William noticed tonight. And somewhere inside the institution, a decision is taking shape. It has not been spoken aloud, it has not reached the press, but it is coming. The flashbulbs catch it first. A royal appearance weeks later. A line of photographers, a sea of long lenses, and there it is again, Queen Camilla, stepping into public view, wearing a jewel that the public discourse has tied again and again to Diana's era. The shutters fire in a wave. Within hours, the images will travel the globe. William is there, and this time, the cameras are watching him too. He gives them nothing, no flinch, no frown. He stands with the practiced calm of a man raised inside this machine, knowing that one twitch of his face becomes tomorrow's headline. But Catherine is not watching the necklace. Catherine is watching him. She has positioned herself, almost without thinking, where she can read his expression before the world does. King Charles III moves through the moment with institutional composure. If he feels the undercurrent, he buries it beneath decades of training. The family presents one smooth, unbroken surface to the lenses, calm on the outside, layered, pressurized, and silent underneath. And here is how the commentary breaks down afterward, because it always does. Royal analysts frame it carefully. Some say the jewel was reportedly interpreted by commentators as a quiet statement. Others insist it was nothing. Protocol, wardrobe, tradition, a piece following a title exactly as the rules allow. The public splits down the middle, as it always does, and the comment sections fill with two armies who will never agree. But notice what the real conflict is. It is not Camilla versus William. It is not even Camilla versus Diana's memory. It is something colder and more permanent. Tradition versus emotional memory. Legal ownership versus symbolic inheritance. The institution's need for continuity versus one family's unhealed personal history. Those forces do not fight with words. They fight with silence, with optics, with who wears what and when. And the aides notice the shift first. According to the way these things tend to surface, Palace staff begin to observe a change in how William communicates. Nothing dramatic, a little more precision in his language, a little more weight behind his pauses. The questions he asks grow sharper, more pointed, more interested in process than in pleasantries. The people closest to him feel the temperature change before anyone above him does, because something is moving through the corridors now.
Prince William and Camilla, they're coming together.
A question passed quietly from one trusted ear to the next, never written down, never officially asked. Should symbolic memory be handled differently going forward? It is not an accusation. It is not a demand. It is the kind of question that, once spoken inside a palace, never fully goes away. And the most unsettling thing is who has not yet answered it. Inside Buckingham Palace, nothing happens by accident. Every brooch, every tiara, every necklace that appears in public passes through a system most people never see. There are ceremonial approval processes. There is wardrobe coordination weeks in advance. There is historical cataloguing of the royal collection, item by item, with provenance recorded and roles assigned. When a queen wears a jewel, it is rarely a whim. It is a decision that moved through hands, calendars, and conversations long before the cameras ever fired. So the people now studying William's mood understand something important. There is no confirmed wrongdoing here. There is no broken law, no seized property, no statute violated. Queen Camilla is operating entirely within the established royal tradition of inherited regalia. By every written rule, she is exactly where she belongs, wearing exactly what her title allows. This is the wall William keeps running into. He cannot point to a crime because there is none. He cannot demand a return because nothing was taken. The rules are airtight. The tradition is centuries deep, and that is precisely what makes his position so difficult. His objection lives in a place the rulebook does not cover. The emotional ledger, the part of history that no catalogue records. So his response turns inward, not confrontation, recalibration. He is not building an argument to win in a single room. He is rethinking the entire framework, quietly, the way a man does when he realizes the problem is bigger than the moment in front of him. Catherine steps into her role again, the one she plays better than anyone, the interpreter. She does not inflame the situation. She translates it. She gives the emotion context, helps it stay measured, keeps it from becoming the explosion the press would feast on. Where others might escalate, she steadies. And King Charles III stands at the center of a balancing act few people could survive. He must protect family unity. He must protect institutional continuity. He must protect public perception. Three forces pulling in three directions, and his job is to keep them from tearing apart in full view of the world. Then comes the whisper. A senior royal aide, according to the way these matters tend to leak into commentary circles, reportedly advises caution. Lower visibility of legacy-linked items just for a period. Let the temperature drop. Let the speculation cool. A quiet, sensible, deeply institutional suggestion. And here is the strange part. The advice is not accepted. The advice is not rejected. It simply hangs there, unanswered in the space between the people who could act on it. A decision delayed is still a decision, and everyone inside that room knows it. Something is being held back on purpose. The only question is who is holding it, and why they are waiting. Here is the truth nobody at that first reception understood. It was never about the necklace. Strip away the diamonds, the flashbulbs, the whispered advice, and the conflict underneath has almost nothing to do with one piece of jewellery. The jewel is just the surface. The real fight is over the meaning that gets attached to it. And, far more importantly, over who gets to control that meaning when the next reign begins. Step back, and the monarchy reveals what it actually is.
And hopefully provide maybe a different side to that others haven't seen before.
Not a family in the way most people use the word. A system. A machine of inherited symbolism designed to outlive every person inside it. It does not run on love or grief or fairness. It runs on continuity. And continuity does not care whose heart is breaking in the process. That is the cold engine humming beneath every ceremony. and the pressure on that engine has never been higher. Public scrutiny of royal finances grows louder every year, with commentators dissecting every cost, every property, every line of funding. Expectations for modernisation keep climbing, and the entire institution is still adjusting to life after Queen Elizabeth II, navigating a transition that exposed just how fragile the public's patience can be. The family knows it does not get the benefit of the doubt anymore. That erosion did not happen in isolation. The controversies surrounding Andrew Mountbatten Windsor cut deep into public trust, dragging the family's name through headlines no palace strategist could fully contain. And succession planning, once handled discreetly behind closed doors, now plays out in the open, analysed, predicted and debated by millions who feel they have a stake in the outcome. So when William watches that necklace, he is not reacting like a grieving son anymore. He is thinking like a future king. Structurally, strategically, he is seeing a vulnerability in the system itself. The way unmanaged symbolism can reopen old wounds and hand the press another story the family cannot control. And here is the midpoint turn that changes how you see everything before it. This was never Camilla versus Diana. It was never one woman's memory against another's title. It is about who controls royal symbolism in the next era, whose interpretation of the monarchy wins when the crown finally passes. That is the real inheritance being fought over, not jewels, meaning itself. Then the public starts to notice something. Catherine, Princess of Wales, begins appearing, whether by design or instinct observers can only speculate, more deliberately aligned with Diana's symbolic legacy in the public eye. The warmth, the echoes, the quiet visual continuity that makes people whisper her name and Diana's in the same breath. And the audience sees the pattern forming before the palace ever acknowledges a single thing. The institution has always survived by controlling the story, by deciding what the public sees and when they see it. But for the first time, the public is reading ahead. They are connecting the dots faster than the palace can hide them. And once a crowd starts writing the ending on its own, no statement, no silence, and no centuries-old tradition can pull it back. The question now is not whether the monarchy will respond. It is whether anyone inside those walls can still control what happens when it does. No press release, no statement, no confirmation. And yet, everything starts to change. Watch the appearances closely over the following weeks, and a pattern emerges without a single official word. Certain symbolic items stop repeating. Pieces the public had grown used to seeing quietly disappear from the rotation. Coordination tightens. Schedules that once felt loose now feel arranged, deliberate, almost choreographed. The monarchy is moving, but it is moving in silence. That is how this institution has always worked. It rarely announces a retreat. It simply adjusts the picture and lets the world draw its own conclusions. If royal power plays like this fascinate you, this is exactly the channel for it. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the stories we break down here, the quiet decisions that reshape a 1,000-year-old institution, are the ones the palace would rather you never piece together. Drop a comment with what you think is really driving these changes. Your read might be sharper than the experts. Now, here is what observers begin to notice. King Charles III holds the centre, maintaining institutional equilibrium with the steadiness that has defined his entire public life. He gives nothing away. Queen Camilla, for her part, remains entirely consistent in how she executes her role. Composed, unbothered, performing the duties of her title exactly as the rules permit. Nothing in her conduct breaks form, but William is described differently now. Aides and royal watchers begin using a particular kind of language about him, future-oriented in symbolic interpretation. He is no longer just reacting to what he sees. He is thinking about what the monarchy will mean when it is his to define. The grief has hardened into something more useful, vision, and then the rumour surfaces. According to reports circulating in commentary circles, an internal review of royal presentation protocols is quietly underway. Not a public inquiry, not a scandal investigation, something smaller and far more telling, a behind-closed-doors look at how the family presents its symbols, its history, and its legacy to the world. No one confirms it, No one denies it loudly enough to settle the matter.
The best way to prevent suicide is to talk about it. Talk about it early, talk about it with your loved ones, those you trust, your friends. So thank you for talking about it.
From a public relations standpoint, that ambiguity is the entire strategy. Say nothing, change everything, and let the silence do the work. So the monarchy adapts. Carefully, without announcement, without admitting that anything needed adapting at all. But here is the thing about quiet change inside a system this old. Once it begins, it almost never stays contained. Someone always notices. Someone always talks. And the more the palace tightens its grip on the story, the more obvious it becomes that there is a story worth gripping. The institution is rewriting its own rules in real time, and no one has yet asked the most dangerous question. What happens when those new rules collide with the people who built their entire identity on the old ones? He starts asking about provenance, specific pieces, specific records, specific histories. Prince William, Prince of Wales, is no longer just observing in silence. The people around him begin to notice a shift in what he wants to know. Not gossip, not blame, documentation, where pieces came from, how they were catalogued, what rules govern their use, and who decides when those rules bend. A future king is doing his homework, and underneath all of it sits a weight that has nothing to do with paperwork. He is the son of Diana, Princess of Wales. He carries a memory the entire world shares, but only he truly owns. Every flash of a familiar jewel, every echo of his mother in the public eye, lands on him in a way it lands on no one else. He is also the future monarch, the man who will one day be the guardian of this institution's stability. Those two roles do not always agree. The son wants to protect a memory. The king in waiting has to protect a system. That is the quiet burden he carries into every room now. This is not a fight with any single person. Camilla is not his enemy. Charles is not his enemy. His struggle is with something harder to confront, a symbolism tied so tightly to his mother that he cannot escape it and cannot ignore it. You cannot challenge a tradition to a duel. You can only decide slowly what you will do with it when the power finally becomes yours. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stays close through all of it. She has become the emotional translator in this story, the one who keeps the temperature steady. She does not push him toward confrontation. She does not feed the tension. She gives it shape and context, helping him channel a personal wound into something measured and lasting. Where raw emotion might have caused a public rupture, she keeps it private, controlled, deliberate. And King Charles III remains institutionally focused, as he must. His eyes stay fixed on continuity, on the survival of the framework that outlives everyone inside it. He cannot afford to lead with feeling. The crown does not permit it. Then comes the quiet pivot that changes the trajectory of everything. According to the way these matters tend to surface, William reportedly begins shifting his focus towards something concrete, formalizing clearer symbolic boundaries for his future reign. Not revenge, not a confrontation in a ballroom. Rules, provenance, clarity about how legacy items are used, so that no future moment can reopen the wound he felt under that chandelier. He is not reacting to history anymore. He is preparing to rewrite how history gets handled. A future rule set is being shaped emotionally, quietly, long before a single word of it is ever written down. And the question that hangs over it all is simple and unsettling. When a king finally writes those rules, who inside the family loses the freedom they once took for granted? Two women, two versions of legacy, and a public that has already started choosing sides. Place Queen Camilla and Catherine, Princess of Wales, side by side, and the contrast tells the entire story of where the monarchy stands right now. They are not enemies. They are not rivals shouting across a room. They are two completely different answers to the same question. What does legacy mean, and who carries it forward? Camilla represents institutional continuity. Her legitimacy is role-based, anchored in title, structure, and the slow historical acceptance the institution built for her over decades. She wears the jewels of a queen because she is the queen. Her claim rests on the rules, on the machinery of the monarchy itself, on the principle that position outlives sentiment. From a public relations standpoint, her entire standing was constructed through structure, not affection, and that construction has held. Catherine represents something the rulebook cannot manufacture: emotional continuity. Her power comes from public resonance, from the way millions see Diana's warmth living on in her gestures, her presence, her connection to ordinary people. She did not inherit that through a title. The public handed it to her freely. Royal biographers have long debated whether that kind of organic legitimacy is, in the long run, more durable than any structural claim, because you cannot vote it away or rule it out of existence. So you have two interpretations of legacy standing in the same family. One built by the institution, one granted by the people, both legitimate, both real, and quietly, inevitably, pulling in different directions. This is not antagonism, it is contrast. And contrast, in a story like this, is far more powerful than conflict, because the public gets to decide what it means. And that is exactly what starts happening. Observers begin drawing their own conclusions faster than the palace communication cycles can keep up. The comment sections fill, the analysts publish. The crowd compares the two women, weighs their claims, and writes its own verdict long before any official voice weighs in. The story is no longer being told by the palace. It is being told by everyone watching. For an institution that has survived for centuries by controlling its own narrative, this is the real shift. The monarchy is no longer setting the pace of interpretation. The audience is. Once a public, this large starts forming its own conclusions. The palace loses the one weapon it has always relied on, the power to decide what its story means, and the next move belongs to forces no statement can command. Pull back, and the whole board comes into view. This was never just a story about a necklace, a queen, and a grieving son. It is a story about a monarchy under more pressure than it has faced in a generation. Transparency expectations climb higher every year, with the public demanding answers about money, privilege, and power that earlier generations never had to give. Media acceleration means a single image travels the world in minutes, analysed and reanalyzed, before the palace can even draft a response. Symbolic sensitivity has never been sharper. Every jewel, every gesture, every echo of the past gets read, debated, and dissected in real time. And succession visibility, once a private matter handled behind heavy doors, now plays out in full public view, with millions watching to see who rises, who fades, and what kind of king comes next. Inside all of that, William stands clearly positioned now as the future reform-oriented monarch in public perception, not a rebel, not a man tearing anything down, a king in waiting who has quietly decided that the institution must handle its own memory with more care than it has shown. King Charles III continues balancing continuity, holding the present steady while the future takes shape around him. Queen Camilla maintains her role stability, consistent and composed, exactly as her title requires. And Catherine, Princess of Wales, becomes the symbolic bridge, the link between the emotional past the public refuses to forget and the modern monarchy still finding its footing. But here is what observers start to detect beneath the calm surface. A generational divergence becomes visible in how symbolism is interpreted from the inside. The older guard sees tradition, continuity, rules that have worked for centuries. The younger generation sees meaning, memory, and the emotional cost of getting it wrong. Same institution, same jewels, two completely different ways of reading what they stand for. And that is the quiet fracture this entire story has been moving toward. Not a war, not a scandal with a confession, something deeper. Two interpretations of the monarchy now coexisting inside one single institution, each waiting for its moment to define what comes next. If this kind of forensic look inside the royal family keeps you watching, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next breakdown. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might be the one that opens someone else's eyes to what is really happening behind those palace walls. Because the two versions of this monarchy cannot stay balanced forever. Sooner or later, one of them has to win, and the moment it does, everything the public thought it understood will change. No explosion, no confession, no dramatic statement from a palace balcony. And that, in the end, is the most telling thing of all. There is no scandal confirmed here, no crime, no theft, no courtroom reckoning. Instead, there is something quieter and far more revealing: institutional adaptation. The monarchy did what the monarchy always does. It absorbed the pressure, adjusted the picture, and moved forward, without ever admitting that anything had shifted at all. And here is the conclusion this entire story has been building toward. The monarchy does not resolve its symbolism conflicts. It manages them. It does not heal the old wounds. It learns to dress them more carefully. The tension under that chandelier was never going to end in a confrontation. It was always going to end in adjustment, in rules quietly redrawn and meanings quietly reassigned. The final tone is not triumph. It is the disappointment of watching history repeat itself in a softer, more polished form. The same patterns, the same unhealed memory, the same institution choosing continuity over closure, one more time. William does not break the institution. That was never his aim. He reshapes its interpretation boundaries instead, drawing clearer lines around how legacy is handled, so the wound he felt in public can be managed, contained, and never carelessly reopened in his reign. That is his reform. Not rebellion, refinement. Queen Camilla remains queen. Her role holds, her title stands, her place in the structure is secure. Catherine, Princess of Wales, becomes the emotional continuity anchor, carrying the memory the public refuses to release into the monarchy's future. And King Charles III remains the stabilizer king, holding everything in balance through a transition history will study for decades. And the final reflection is the one that lingers. The necklace moment was never about possession. It was never about who owned what, or which rule applied, or whether tradition permitted it. It was about something the rulebook can never govern: memory entering governance, the past sitting down at the table where the future is decided, and refusing to be ignored. That is the lesson buried in this whole story. Tradition without empathy becomes cruelty wearing a crown. A system can be perfectly within its rights and still wound the people inside it, and the next king has learned that the hard way, beneath a chandelier, in 3 seconds of silence that may quietly reshape how a monarchy remembers its own. If this story moved you, share it. Leave your thoughts in the comments and inspire someone else to see the royal family the way you now do. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next story we uncover here might just be the one no one else is brave enough to tell. The crown endures, but the question of what it chooses to remember and what it chooses to forget is only just beginning.